got to the point where even as a true believer, as a Sea Org member, I wasn't getting any value or fulfillment from the job that I was doing. And I wasn't getting, no one's saying, hey, you're doing a great job. You're treated like a piece of shit. And eventually that just gets old.
Yeah.
And eventually I was just like, I got better shit to be doing. I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, that's just pretty simple. So even when I wanted to leave the Sea organization, it was still only because the experience wasn't rewarding. It wasn't like, oh, I don't believe in Scientology anymore. And so we both left the Sea organization. My wife had been in for 14 years. I had been working for Scientology since I was 12, but I was only in the Sea organization for the last 4 of those years. So then we moved to Clearwater to raise a family because her whole family was in Clearwater. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until, that was 2006. 3 years later in 2009, the Tampa Bay Times wrote a series of articles called The Truth Rundown, where they were interviewing people like Mike Rinder, who had been high-level Scientology executives, known by everyone in the world, and who not only left the Sea Org, but had left Scientology altogether and were now speaking out for the first time. And reading those articles, and it's weird to say this, right? Because you're reading an article in the paper and you're like, why is it that reading something had more of an impact on you than just experiencing it? How come experiencing what you experienced didn't make you want to leave Scientology, but reading about it in the newspaper made you consider it? And it was like, because what I was reading in the newspaper was stuff I'd never known. And it gets to that we were talking about earlier of siloing of information. The international base where David Miscavige works is supposed to be in Scientology like a utopia where everyone's a trained Scientologist and you're not dealing with any of the merchants of fear and merchants of chaos and public complaining that their auditing didn't make them feel as good as they hoped, right? It's supposed to be this perfect place. And I'd never been there. And all of the stupid, horrible shit I experienced in Scientology could sort of be explained away and justified by going, well, it's probably much better up there. But what we didn't know is that it was much, much worse up there.
Sounds like it.
It was much worse the closer you got to Miscavige. And so when I'm reading these articles and I'm reading information from people I know, people who are credible, people who I know were true believers, people who I know worked with L. Ron Hubbard, and they're like, yeah, David Miscavige beats the shit out of people, and half of management has been removed from their posts, and hundreds of millions of dollars are being squandered here and squandered there. And you're like, what? It just caused me to sort of reframe everything I thought I knew. And that was just the first crack in the dam. It's not like I read some newspaper articles and I was like, oh shit, I got to leave Scientology. That was the first time I was like, oh, wait.
Did